Caller says that there's a gash on the patient's neck. It looks like someone slashed her neck.
This harrowing 911 call went through around 3 in the afternoon. Crime scene tape surrounded the area. 7 Skyforce hovered above the investigation. A man also seen being transported by ambulance. Family and friends of the woman who died quickly showing up. Some embracing while others anxiously waited for answers.
You don't know if it's someone that lives here, or if it's someone that the person knew that lives outside, but yeah, it's definitely concerning.
Who is responsible for this? Well, that is still a mystery.
Demonstrating a depraved mind without regard for human life by stabbing with a sharp object with a premeditated intent to cause death.
You just heard how the state of Florida had to describe what happened inside that apartment. That's not casual language. That's a legal document. And prosecutors don't reach for words that heavy unless they mean it. Now see, here's what nobody tells you going into a story like this one. The 2 women at the center of it were never rivals the way you're picturing, baby. They didn't fight over him in the same room. Y'all, they didn't even fight over him in the same state. Not until somebody bought a plane ticket. They never even met, not once, not until the last morning of Kayla's life. What connected them was one man who somehow managed to be a part of both of their lives without either woman ever getting the version of him the other one had. Chilla. And by the time we're done here, one of these women is gone, and the other one is going to spend the rest of her life explaining herself to people who stopped listening a long time ago. Welcome to Crime of Love. Look, I want you to hold on to one thing as we go. The reason behind all of this. Because I promise you, when you hear it, it's going to make you madder than the crime itself. But before we get to the reason, let's start with who Kayla actually was, because she deserves that before anything else. Kayla Hodgson was 23 years old. She worked as a flight attendant, and she picked up bartending shifts for special events on the side, which means this woman spent her whole working life making other people's worst days a little smoother, whether that was a delayed flight or an open bar at somebody's wedding. That's 2 jobs that both require you to keep smiling at strangers. And by all accounts, she still had energy left over to be the most fun person in the room. Baby, that's either a superpower or a serious caffeine habit. And I choose to believe it was the superpower. Her friend Swana didn't hesitate when she was asked what Kayla was like. Sweet, the life of the party. Always had something kind to say. Now, y'all, people don't say that about somebody just to be nice at a time like this. They say it because it's true and because they miss having it around. Here's the thing about Kayla that I need you to sit with. She wasn't a character in anybody's love triangle. She didn't know she was standing anywhere near the center of somebody else's obsession. As far as she knew, she was just a 23-year-old with 2 jobs and a good sense of humor. Dating a man, living her life, minding her business. That's it. That's the whole life she was living when all of this found her. Lord. Now, to understand how somebody like Kayla ends up anywhere near a story like this one, we have to talk about the man standing between her and Sakina. Let's talk about Terry, because baby, we have to. Terry and Sakina were exes. Broken up, officially finished the kind of over where a normal person deletes the number and moves on with their Tuesday. Somebody forgot to tell Sakina's thumbs that, because those thumbs were still going through that man's phone like they had a shift to work, checking messages, checking who he was talking to, checking for a woman named Kayla specifically, because by then she already had a name to look for. And when she found what she was looking for, she didn't call him. She didn't confront him. She turned her attention to Kayla instead, a woman who, as far as anybody can tell, was simply dating a man who told her he was single. That's the part I need y'all to notice. The person Sakina was actually upset with was never the one she went after. And can we just acknowledge real quick how messy this whole triangle actually was? Lord, you've got a woman who won't let go of a relationship that already let go of her, a man who apparently forgot to mention to either woman what the actual status of anything was, and a 23-year-old just trying to date somebody in peace. Terry, listen here. Silence is not the same thing as innocence. You don't get to walk away from a story like this scot-free just because you didn't raise your own hand. 2 weeks before Kayla died, Sakina posted a video online.
Step one.
Notice I get
She titled it Step 1, then she posted another one.
Step two.
She titled that one Step 2. Nobody watching knew what Step 3 was going to be. We do now. And what set all of this in motion? I said what I said, and I'll say it again. Kayla blocked her on social media. That's it. That's the whole spark. Somewhere in New York, a block notification landed like a declaration of war over a man who had already walked out the door on his own. Now, see, here's a question worth sitting with. If somebody can be pushed to that kind of rage over a relationship that had already ended, what exactly did that relationship look like while it was still going? Because this wasn't a heartbreak. Heartbreak doesn't number its steps. Whew, chilly. Before we keep going, if this is your first time pulling up a seat at this table, go on and hit that subscribe button. Ring the bell too, because we've got a lot more stories exactly like this one. And I do my homework every single time before I ever open my mouth. All right, now that you're part of the family, let's get back into it. Because looking back, the signs were already flashing red before any of this ever reached Kayla's front door. According to people close to both of them, this didn't come out of nowhere. Family members say Sakina had been going through Terry's phone for a while by this point. Not once, not out of curiosity, a pattern. Nobody stepped in. The block happened. The Step 1 and Step 2 videos went up 2 weeks later. Now, anybody paying close attention had 2 separate warnings in writing posted publicly with a timestamp. Nobody stepped in. Baby, by the time July came around, the only person who had no warning at all was the one person who needed one. This is the morning it happened. 5 a.m, July 13th, 2022. Kayla opened her door. A woman was standing there in disguise, a wide brim hat, a mask, gloves. Kayla had never seen this woman before in her life. What happened next lasted only minutes. Kayla was attacked with a knife again and again inside her own living room. She never had the chance to call for help. Kayla Hodgson was gone. She was 23 years old. It would be hours before anyone outside that apartment knew what had happened. By that afternoon, deputies were already calling this what it was.
The Broward County Sheriff's Office's mobile command center is still here on the scene as investigators continue processing evidence here. And now the Sheriff's Office is officially calling this a murder investigation.
Chilla. And it didn't take long for one detail to stand out from everything else in that parking lot. A white Range Rover parked right outside, nicer than anything else out there.
Deputies focusing part of their investigation on this white Range Rover parked nearby.
Now, funny thing about Range Rovers, they don't drive themselves to a crime scene. Somebody has to leave them there.
It's actually one of the biggest mobile forensics units in the country. It allows them to process the evidence more quickly.
Meanwhile, all through that building, investigators were coming up against the same wall.
Neighbors on our floor tell us they did not hear any recent commotion.
When I came in, I saw that the tape was on the door, and that's all I know.
Did you ever see anybody unusual come in or out of there?
No.
Nobody heard a struggle. Nobody saw a stranger. Whoever did this walked in and walked back out. Like they already knew exactly what they were doing. And somewhere in New York, life was going on completely normal for 2 people who had every reason not to feel normal at all. On July 25th, 12 days after Kayla was gone, A warrant went out for Sakina Thompson's arrest.
On July 25th, a warrant was issued for 28-year-old Sakina Thompson. She was arrested on Wednesday in New York City.
Y'all, that's not overnight. That's nearly 2 weeks of Sakina walking around New York, going to work, doing her nails, while an entire community in Tamarack was terrified out of its mind.
Shayla Hernandez was horrified by the murder of her neighbor.
It makes me feel a lot better and more secure that they finally arrested somebody.
She was picked up in Springfield Gardens, Queens, without incident and extradited back to Florida to face one charge: first-degree murder. By the time this reached a courtroom, there was another detail on the table. Sakina had been 2 months pregnant at the time of the attack. Baby, according to an earlier account of this case while she was in custody, she wrote a letter to the judge asking to be released long enough to give birth outside those walls. I have to be upfront with you. That specific letter is something we're passing along from an earlier account, not something we've independently verified word for word. So hold it loosely until we can confirm it. Request denied. 2 years passed before any of this reached a jury. When Sakina finally took the stand in her own defense, her story was that Kayla let her in to talk, woman to woman, and that Kayla attacked first, cutting her stomach with a piece of glass from a hookah. Sakina says she blacked out and came to with Kayla already gone. Chile. I don't know what kind of blackout comes with enough clarity to change into somebody else's clothes, clean up a crime scene, throw out the evidence, and still make a flight home on schedule. That's not a blackout. That's an itinerary. The jury took that story into a room to decide what to do with it. The jury didn't need long, less than an hour, and they'd already seen straight through every part of that story.
State of Florida versus Sakina Thompson.
A burden lifted.
We, the jury, find as follows as the defendant in this case. The defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree.
Guilty is what this family has waited to hear for more than 3 years.
We finally have some justice for Kayla.
A jury found Sakina Thompson guilty of killing 23-year-old Kayla Hodgson in 2022. Prosecutors argued Thompson surprised Hodgson at her Tamarack apartment, confronted her about the two of them dating the same man, and then stabbed her to death. Hodgson's family cried tears of joy in the courtroom Tuesday. They hugged each other tight because a guilty verdict is what they prayed for.
We're so thankful in this moment that the jury was able to see the story for what it is, that Kayla did not deserve to die the way that she did.
Defense attorneys insist Thompson didn't start the fight. They say Hodgson hit Thompson first and cut her stomach with a piece of glass. When Thompson took the stand earlier in the week, she admitted she killed Hodgson because her life was in danger and she was pregnant.
She thought, oh God, she's coming for me and my baby. That's when she grabs the glass and then she blacks out.
After the murder, Thompson admitted she changed into the victim's clothes, cleaned up some of the scene, and that she was too scared to call police. She also threw evidence in the trash. A life taken too soon. Years later, the family says they got justice.
And the moment I heard guilty, it was what we all needed for closure in this moment to move forward, to start our healing process. It's been a long 3.5 years.
That verdict came down in October. Sentencing didn't happen until December. And by the time Kayla's family walked back into that courtroom, they'd had 2 months to think about exactly what they wanted to say. Some of them showed up wearing shirts with Kayla's photo printed on the back. Justice for Kayla right across their chests, so nobody in that room could look away from who this was actually about. Her cousin Melanie didn't hold back. She called what Sakina did wicked and evil and said plainly that a person like that should never see the light of day again. Another cousin, Alicia, put it simpler. She said she could finally start to heal. Now, y'all, I want you to sit with the word finally for a second. Finally. After 3.5 years, finally, after a trial, after a letter asking for sympathy, this family was never offered themselves finally. And one more relative went further, essentially asking Sakina how she had the nerve to sit on that stand and offer up a story nobody in that room believed, while an entire courtroom watched taxpayer time get wasted on it. Chile, look, we've talked about calling people out around here, and this is exactly what I mean. Not a catchphrase, not a nickname, just somebody looking a woman dead in the eye and naming exactly what she saw. The judge gave Sakina life in prison without the possibility of parole. By the way, baby, this case did not stay quiet after that. It went everywhere online. TikTok, comment sections, strangers with no connection to Tamarack or New York picking sides in a love triangle that ended somebody's life. And look, I understand the pull of it. I really do. We're literally doing that right now. But there's a difference between talking about a tragedy and turning it into entertainment that forgets there was a real 23-year-old at the center of it. I just needed to say that part out loud. Let's do the math on the rest of this, because I think it matters. Kayla is gone. Sakina is spending the rest of her natural life behind bars, and the son she had while awaiting trial is being raised by his grandparents, not by either parent. That's 3 lives completely rearranged over a relationship that had already ended before any of this ever started. And Terry, word going around says he's already moved on to somebody new. Baby, I can't confirm that one the way I've confirmed everything else in this story. So take it as what the streets are saying, not what the court record says. But here's what I can tell you for certain. All we've got on this man this entire time is a first name. Terry. That's it. That's the whole receipt. Now, I'm not saying any of this is his fault. Wanting somebody who's already gone doesn't turn into a knife in anybody's healthy mind. And Terry didn't hand Sakina anything. But when the wreckage is this lopsided and the man standing at the center of it doesn't even get a last name in his own story, you have to sit with what that says about who answers for what and who just gets to walk away clean. Remember how we started this? A woman got blocked on social media and somebody's whole life ended over it. I want you to really hold on to that, because that's not a headline. That's the entire case, not years of history, not a betrayal she witnessed with her own eyes, a notification. But this story was never supposed to be about him or about a notification. It was supposed to be about her. Kayla Hodgson never got her cocktail lounge, never got to turn 24. Her family remembers her exactly the way her friend Swana did, long before any of this happened. Sweet. The life of the party always had something kind to say. God bless her. She deserves so much more time than she got. Rest well, Kayla. If this story moved you, that's exactly why we do this. Hit that like button, and if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe, because we've got more stories just like this one every single week. Baby, drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell us what stood out to you and tell us where you landed on Terry. We read every single one. We'll see you in the next story.